Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Hello, welcome back to the FOF pod. Now, earlier this week, I had the chance to go down to London and see an early screening of Lee. Big thanks to Sky Cinema for the invite. Matt was unable to join me, however. He's currently preparing to move into a new Moss Manor very soon, and he's got lots of work on. But he managed to see it miraculously, and I didn't know this until a few hours before I sort of sat down in the cinema. So, Matt, tell us how you made it, because I'm still intrigued.
I moved mountains. Basically, I couldn't spare the 2 days needed to go down to London, which really was annoying. I was really looking for. We've been looking forward to this movie for years. Getting the opportunity to go down to a press screening was amazing. But I at the moment I'm so busy. I couldn't spare the travel time. So I was really pleased that Rob was going to get down there and get to see it. And we were just going to do like a conversational episode where we chatted about what you thought of the film. And then I'd probably see it, on release day probably. But then I noticed, I was doing some Googling to see if there were any advanced screenings, and there was one in Liverpool at the Everyman, and I found that I think that was the day that you headed down, or the day after. It might have been actually on. Yeah, no, it was Sunday, wasn't it? So
yeah.
It was the day you headed down, and luckily that's only, half an hour, 40 minutes travel time.
Oh, yeah, not too far.
I can spare that to see a film.
Ironically, it would have been easier for me to go to that too, because I had coach, train, but planes, trains, automobiles for me. It really was.
The saga. I had the entire saga by WhatsApp. Rob's Adventures.
It was my Hearts
I'm really
of
glad I could
it?
see the film.
Yeah.
Really glad I could see it. And that means we can do a full spoiler review of the film.
And I was just about to say that this will be of course it will be a spoiler heavy review. Be warned, folks. If you want to go and watch the movie beforehand and then come back and listen to our thoughts, please do. But we know people that do listen anyway and still go and see the movie. So however you want to play it this week, folks, but this will be spoiler heavy, just to let you know. And also, before we begin, the movie is in theatres in the UK on September the 13th, so book your tickets now. And it's out on the 27th in the US, and I think it will be coming to Sky Cinema, or at least Sky Store, for rental.
Yeah, it'll be Sky Store first, probably in time for Christmas,
I think
probably
so.
November,
There's no
even
hard
earlier,
date.
maybe October, perhaps. I don't know. The
No
turnaround on these
yet.
things seems to be so quick nowadays.
But I saw a trailer on TV earlier.
Yeah.
And I also saw a lot of posters while I was out and about. So they're definitely pushing it, which is lovely to see, because
I was in a local cinema about 2 weeks ago. Went to see Blink twice, which was also very good. And there was a big one up there, and I was like, oh, good, that's a good sign.
Yeah,
they're gonna try and push this, and I hope they do, and I hope
because
a lot of people see it.
We've been starved of cinema releases this year for war films on the UK front anyway. I felt that, Gentlemanly Warfare, obviously we said should have had it. There was that, and then there's not really been that much else. It's a bit of a shame.
No. Well, we had there's been a bit of a dearth, hasn't there, in kind of Western war movies lately.
I still think we're in a hangover from the strike. If you read up on things, it's a slow process, I think, to get things back rolling. So maybe next year will be the year for more. However, we have a large question this week, and it was Matt who posed this large question to me on the FOF WhatsApp, and it was because obviously this week it's about Lee Miller, famous war correspondent and photojournalist. What famous photograph from a conflict would you like to see depicted on film? And we had some very, a hell of a lot of responses. We had 44 responses and nearly 150 likes on the post. So it really hit with the the FOF audience. So it's kicking off with Paul Burns. He says, "We'd like to see a film made about the Brits in the Korean War. I've used this picture from the IWM, partly because it highlights the KLSI. Soldiers of Shropshire Museum is well worth a visit. I do agree. It's very local to me. If you're in the area, go down to the Soldiers of Shropshire Museum. It's in Shrewsbury Castle, and you can see Carl Dernitz's baton that he handed over when he surrendered in Flensburg. And I wrote a piece on that for History of War magazine because it's really interesting. But the picture he puts up is of the KSLI in Korea with a Bren gun. We just need more Korean War movies, really, don't we?
We do. And I recommended Hill in Korea,
Yes.
which Paul hadn't seen, and he's bought the DVD already, and he's
gonna
love it. Just know it. You just know it.
Martin Wincup goes with there's some amazing Manchester Regiment stories to tell and share, and he put a photo of 1945 1st Battalion Manchester Regiments outside Wrexham or Wrexham. An ideal machine gunners battle. AFPU cameramen were there to capture it, and they're like firing their Vickers gun.
Pepper potting, no doubt.
Yes, it'd be great. A Cleve film would be amazing.
It would,
seeing that pepper
it really
pot
would.
put on the big screen. We also had James Priest, who said we really need a decent Falklands War film. Would love to see this recreated, which is the famous image of the Royal Marine with the Union Jack. I mean, of course, we nearly got one in the 80s with or early 90s with Lewis Collins, but it fell through. Called Task Force South. I wonder what happened to that. Warfare Media, who at the moment sponsors the show, please use FOF20 for a fat discount.
They've got a cool new book out featuring a lot of the posters they've digitized, so definitely check that out.
And they're making camo now.
Yeah, some Op4 blue DPM camo.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I want them to release Denison Smock. Like
it's a no-brainer.
Someone make Denison socks. It's so easy. It's such a gimme. Come on. If we, in the words of Alan Partridge, and because it's Sky this week, if you don't do it, Sky will. But Warfare Media says Bomb Alley with a photo from Bomb Alley. It's San Carlos Bay, of course. Who wouldn't want that? I proposed to Matt once that someone should have written a comedy drama about the civilian crew left on the Canberra.
Would have been amazing.
I think that would have been very funny.
That'd be great.
Could have been very good. One of them's working in the shop, another one of them's like, having to sort of clean up after, all that. I think it's just been brilliant. Anyway, I digress. We have Kevin Getz, who says a biopic of Captain Ogilvy. Is it Ogilvy? Ogilvy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ogilvy,
a biopic of Captain Ogilvy would be epic. Such an iconic photo. It's, of course, the photo of him in Arnhem wearing his kilt, sort of rummaging around in the back of a Jeep. I mean, just more Arnhem films. Come on. Yeah, it's the anniversary this month, so let's have more, please. We have Michael Lees, who says the British on D-Day. It's a picture of troops coming ashore at Sword Beach. I can't agree more. Rob Shipman shows the famous photo of the one of the captured paratroopers or glider infantry at Arnhem, giving the V's to the photographer. Would be great. That'd be a very interesting movie. Starting at the end of the battle and going into captivity. I think that might be an interesting one. There's definitely a lot of stories to tell. We have Campbell, who goes Amiens prison raid. I remember there being a Secret Warriors of World War II episode on it back in the day, or Greatest Raids of World War II on UK TV. Robert Powell doing the narration.
Oh, yeah.
Those of a certain age will know his narration work. Jabberwock goes with Taranto with an aerial shot.
Ooh,
make a fantastic set piece, wouldn't it? Graham Parkin goes with a painting, but he says The Retreat from Kabul, 1842.
Yes.
Out of more than 16,000 people from the column commanded by Elphinstone, only one European, Assistant Surgeon William Bryden, and a few Indian sepoys reached Jalalabad. Over 100 British prisoners and civilian hostages were later released. That would make an epic.
It really would. It really would. The Retreat from Kabul in 1847 as well wouldn't be an amazing.
It would be great, and a lot of parallels with recent times with the pullout. Then we have Champagne Commando, who goes the story of 77th Brigade would be interesting. Wingate, Calvert, etc. I think the Chindits are long overdue a film. I think it would be good. There's a very
Yeah,
interesting. I can't remember the name of it. It might have been called Ord, or it might have been called Wingate, actually. But there was like a 70s biopic TV
there
drama,
was. Yeah,
and it's
who
very
was in that?
interesting. I can't remember the actor,
I
but
I
it's
I know the one you mean though.
yes, it used to be on YouTube, but it got
Soundstage,
taken
wasn't it?
down. It's all in a soundstage with very minimal set design. It's very interesting, sort of a very avant-garde take on a biopic. Military History Observer says need a war film based on the British Army involvement in the Russian Civil War, and there's a picture of some chaps in SD and '08 pattern webbing during the Russian Civil War. Again, so many stories could be told from that. And I think this week we will end with we have Dunks, who put up a couple of pictures from the Saint Nazaire raid and one of the British commandos in Norway. I think that'd be a
Yeah.
cracking movie.
There
Yeah.
was yeah, there was a load of really, really good ones.
Mm,
Um it's it just hammers home. There are so many stories that could be told that haven't been yet.
mm.
Um what about you? What did you choose?
I chose, so I went into my sort of mind palace and had a think.
Hmm.
And I chose a picture, and we'll tweet these out later in the week, so
Yeah.
people can see the pictures we were talking about. So there's a picture of a Navy SEAL taken from 1968, and he's decked out in tiger stripe jacket, Erdl beret, and his jeans, and he's armed with a Stoner 63 LMG.
Yeah.
And he was taken in March before his patrol took out a Viet Cong bunker with a demo charge. And it's actually on the Stoner 63 wiki page. It's one of like the operational history photos.
Hmm.
Just a Vietnam Navy SEAL movie would be, I think, be really
It's
cool.
incredible that no one's done one.
And if you want to take it with the picture, you know, obviously embed a photojournalist with them.
Hmm.
Well, I think it'd be really interesting because they haven't really had any depiction on screen, especially from Vietnam, and it's where they create themselves. You know, it's the
Yeah,
nucleus
that's
of the
where
SEALs.
the mythos of the
Mm,
core comes from, isn't it,
exactly.
really?
You know, and think of the branding deals you could have. Levi's could, you know, think of the marketing. It'd be incredible. No, I really think that'd be interesting. And Matt, what's
Instead, we
yours?
get a film where they combine dinosaurs with Vietnam instead.
Oh yeah, you showed me the
Yeah,
trailer for that.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to see that.
That's out soon as well.
Oh, we need to do it maybe for Halloween. If it's out
Maybe,
around that time, we'll do
maybe.
it then.
My choice is a July 1943 photograph of a pair of paras in action in I think it's North Africa, Tunis. Uh, and one's got a number four, or it might
Hmm.
actually, I think from I haven't got it in front of me right now, but from memory, I think it might actually be an SMLE. Um, and the other has a Piat, because I have to bring it up. A fantastic photograph. It's a Piat team. They've both got their HSATs on, scrim. They've both got these really cool scrim sort of overshirts on. They've got the KDs
Yes.
underneath with the sleeves rolled up.
Mm,
Um, and it's an early mark of Piat, so it's got the A-frame monopod rather than the adjustable one. But he's there with it ready, bomb in the tray. It's a great photo. I
mm.
love that.
Just you just want more Pits on screen, don't you?
No one can argue with that.
No, you can't. And it means the show could go on longer because we'll always have another Pitt episode in the bag. Fantastic. Some really great suggestions this week, folks. We really, really enjoyed seeing those photos and things you'd like to see because you never know in the world of movies. You never know.
Lee was, I think, originally announced back in like 2015.
It's been in production for a heck
So,
of a long time.
hey, there's still hope for that Don McCullum film.
But you never know. I mean, hopefully, off the back of this, whoever Angelina Jolie has producing, maybe they'll go, hang on a minute, let's have another crack at the McCullum film. Because wasn't it Jack O'Connell was
I believe it was actually,
rumored
yeah,
to be playing
originally.
McCullum?
Yeah, when they kind of soft announced the
Mm.
project, they mentioned him in the same breath. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. But we do have
I
one
hope so.
about Lee Miller finally. You know, and God knows she's needed a biopic or something because her career and work are just
Mm,
so important and pivotal to how we have that cultural touchstone to the the horrors of the death camps and all the other things she took photos of. But her works are so important. And purely as well, this movie is important as well because there hasn't really been a World War II at least war correspondent movie probably since um, Ernie Pyle's The Story of G.I. Joe. I think I was scratching my head trying to
Yep,
think of anything
yep.
else,
Well,
and there
there's
really
that
hasn't been.
there's that one with Robert Mitchum, Anzio. He's a war correspondent in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but he's
But
not
that's
the
around the
main
same
draw.
time. Well, he is the main draw, but
He's not. Yeah,
but
but not
he's not
really.
really being a war correspondent
No,
in that scene, is he?
no. Lee Miller
Um,
never picks up a weapon in this. Spoiler alert.
no,
Um,
no. Thankfully, that would be
mm.
a bit weird.
Bit weird. So I'm gonna. Matt's got a little bit on the production, and I've got a little bit
Hmm.
on the cast, and then we're just gonna get into it this week. There's no retro review. There's no one word reviews, obviously, because the film isn't out yet. But this one will be a little bit more of a kind of a roundup episode. We're still gonna have the alley tally, still gonna have favorite scenes, but maybe a little bit more cerebral than we usually go. But Matt, production.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, the film kind of was announced all the way back in 2015, and it's been a passion project for Kate Winslet and the director Ellen Karras. There's an interesting entry on Wikipedia, and I looked up the source, and it goes back to like one of these magazine websites where it talks about how the director saw a book about Lee Miller in a bookstore, and she just finished working with Winslet on Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, and she thought she looks very much like Kate Winslet, and sent her a
The
copy.
likeness is there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and essentially it was a slow burn. Winslet became really interested in Miller in her life, and in 2015 they got the project kind of rolling, and then in 2018 through to about 2020 they brought uh, Carras on board and got the film into production, but still, it kind of had a troubled start because they couldn't get the funding for it.
Mm.
And Kate Winslet's been talking about this in the press recently. She spoke to Vogue, fittingly, about the trouble of getting this film into production, and she had a number of quite offhand and
Mm.
arrogant interactions with producers and studio
Yeah, it's a very
execs and those
candid
kind of
interview,
people.
isn't it? It was refreshing actually that
It
she was
was.
so candid.
Um, well, she's got this great attitude where she just doesn't really give a
No.
fuck what people
Just a
think.
bit of a
And
firebrand in that regard, and
yeah,
it
and
is
I respect
refreshing.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially, she talks about approaching studios and producers and funders for backing, and they go, well, why am I supposed to, like this woman, Lee Miller?
Mm.
And or the classic, well, if you make my film, we'll make your little film,
Scratch
you
my
know.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Over the years, they've struggled to gather funding, and I think we mentioned it on the show a couple of weeks back, or we at least discussed it ourselves between us when we were talking about the film. There was a moment in the production where Winslet actually covered the cast's um,
Mm.
salary for about 2 weeks
Yeah.
because there wasn't enough funding available at the time to pay them for that, those
Mm.
2 weeks, which again screams passion project. She
Yeah.
wanted to get
But
this
in a
film made.
healthy way, in a good way.
Oh
It's
God,
not,
yeah.
this isn't a megaropolis. This isn't Coppola trying to go out on a high. This is someone trying to make something to document someone's
Yep.
work that's really important. And
Oh,
that does
without
come
doubt.
through massively
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
movie.
We'll talk about that in
Um,
a moment.
of course.
Obviously, with this elongated kind of pre-production, people came and went from the project, and then obviously COVID happened. So, at one point, Jude Law was attached to play Roland Penrose. He was replaced by
Mm.
Skarsgård, and I think the most interesting thing is they made this film in 4 months, and they made it in Croatia, Hungary, and the UK. Obviously,
Mm.
probably did some in stage filming here, and some of the externals.
Location
And
shoots. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it strikes me that they made this on a relatively tight budget, but I couldn't find any
No, they've not
indication,
come out with the budget yet.
as is becoming the norm for these streaming movies, films in general. They'll put them out in cinemas, but they don't always release the you know
No. And I am so pleased
the
this is getting
budget
a
side of
theatrical
things.
release. I'm
Yeah.
really pleased this is. I think it'd be a travesty just to stick it out on Sky Store, where I think it deserves it, especially, and I'm
Oh, I
going to
agree.
keep coming
I
back
think
to
it'll
it.
do well. I think it will do well on streaming when it does come out there, but I hope it does well in cinemas too.
Oh, without a doubt.
Um,
Yeah,
so
hope it
just to run
resonates with
through,
everybody. Mm.
yeah. So just to run through a couple of the other members of the production side of things. Screenplay, well, obviously the film is based on the lives of Lee Miller, which was written by Anthony Penrose, her
hmm
son.
I think it's just
That
been
was
re-released,
Yeah,
reprinted with a
yeah. It
new
was originally
cover.
published in the
Mm.
early 80s, I believe, and then it's been reprinted
Yeah.
recently. So the screenplay was written by Liz Hannah, who worked on the Mindhunter series and The Post with Streep and
Oh, I like
Hanks.
that. It was a good
Yeah,
film.
it's a good movie.
Mm.
John Coley, who wrote Master and Commander and Hotel Mumbai. So good pedigree here.
Mm.
And then Marion Hume also contributed, and she's a former editor of Vogue Australia and is generally accepted to be a bit of an expert or one of the experts on Lee herself.
Mm.
So obviously she provided a lot
Insight.
of
Mm.
insight alongside Anthony Penrose himself, who helped with the project and gave both Winslet and Carras access to the Lee Miller archive.
Yeah.
We're talking like 60,000 negatives and
Yeah.
photos and artifacts and items and all kinds of amazing
I'd love
stuff.
to go to the farm museum
Yeah,
and see
the
some of
Farley
it
farmhouse.
myself. I've
Yeah,
always wanted to go. Yeah, I've
yeah,
never
I'd
got
like
down
to
there.
too. Other than that, it's worth mentioning that the music was done by Andre Desplat, who's worked with Malik, Ang Lee, Catherine Bigelow,
Yeah.
Wes Anderson,
It's a super score. It
Polanski.
really is good.
It's perfectly
Yeah.
kind of posed. It doesn't overpower scenes.
It's not
It's
intrusive.
what
That's
exactly.
what I was thinking.
It's what you would expect from Desplat, I think.
Mm. Mm.
And then
Somber
just to
is the word I'd go for.
yeah, a fitting tone, I think. So Cuirass herself is perhaps best known as a cinematographer. As I mentioned, she worked on Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. She also worked on the Alan Rickman movie A Little Chaos, which Alan was in and directed, and Kate was in as well.
Yes.
Period drama. I think that was 2014. If anyone wants to go and find it. Since then, she's kind of moved into direction. She's worked on Catch-22, Ozark, Terminalist. So she's cut her teeth on TV serials, and now this is her first major motion picture, and I think it's well directed. What do you
No, it
think?
is. Very, very good. Very good. There's some beautiful shots. There's some really lovely close-ups.
I do like when cinematographers move into direction because they bring their eye with them.
You can always tell.
You can always tell.
Always tell.
Yeah.
And this is one of the movies where you can. And I'll talk about more about the shooting of certain sequences later. In my favorite scene.
Well, I think that's important because obviously they're telling the story of someone who had such skill as a photographer. Had such a innate ability to capture an image and know the moment.
And that's hard to show on screen.
It is.
And I
It
really
is.
think they do nail it. We'll talk more about this later. I'll definitely mention it in the alley tally, but it's very difficult to show shooting film picture shooting. It's difficult to show that in a way that it translates to a sort of a film environment. But I think this movie really gets it. It really understands, or at least the people working on this movie understand how Lee, because obviously they have access to archives, they have access to Anthony, people that knew her. They have a way of showing you how Lee was actually doing her job.
Yeah, you get an idea of the process.
Yeah, which is kind of
the thought process behind when she's composing a shot. And I like that. Obviously, straying away from production here, but I like the shots where she decides not to take the photo because that's just as important.
There's a naturalness to it. There's a truth to it. There's a human. There's a brain behind it. The movie understands that. Yes, the camera is the camera, but it's the human operating the camera that's the more important thing in a way. It's what they choose to document, what
It's
they
the
choose not
photographer,
to.
not the tool, isn't it? Just to round out production, I'll mention that cinematography for the film was done by Pavel Elderman, who is a frequent collaborator with Roman Polanski, and worked on the Pianist, which is a relevant film to mention
Of course,
within
yes.
within the sphere of this. So yeah, how about cast?
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of a rundown of cast. I've just done the key figures because it's quite a lean plot,
Hmm,
a lean film in terms of figures. So obviously we have, the aforementioned Kate Winslet. It's Lee Miller. She was a former muse, model turned photographer turned war correspondent. Super super famous and revered for her work. Winslet herself is an Academy Award winner, known for Titanic, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, alongside Jim Carrey, and The Reader. We have Andy Samberg as David Sherman. He was a fellow war correspondent working for Life magazine, who later became the editor for Life magazine, who befriended Miller during the war. Samberg is a comedian, probably best known to audiences in America for Saturday Night Live. He was in the sort of, I don't know how you describe them, like the comedy rap group,
yeah,
the Lonely Island,
comedy
and
rap
yeah,
duo. Yeah.
and of course Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the sitcom,
Hmm.
which was very, 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 very funny. And this is more of a straight role for Sandberg. It was really nice to see him sort of spread his wings a little bit more,
Yeah.
because I do very much enjoy him as a performer. Then we have Marion Cotillard as Solange D'Ayen or D'Ayen, probably butchering that French name there. She was a friend of Lee, and was the fashion editor of French Vogue. She was in A Very Long Engagement, Public Enemies, Allied, and The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Then we have Alexander Skarsgård as Roland Penrose. He was a surrealist painter, Lee Miller's husband, and he also was a camoufleur in the Second World War. Someone who designed camouflage, which is very, very interesting. I think there could be a movie all about that, to be fair.
There could be. What an interesting process he had in the film.
Very much so. Yes, very
No
much so.
spoilers on that scene.
No, of course. But Skarsgård is known for Generation Kill, The Last Drop, Battleship, Big Little Lies, and Succession.
God, I always
Um,
forget he was in Battleship.
yeah, I know. Bit of a turkey, that one, wasn't it? But Generation Kill sort of absolves all because
Mm,
that's absolutely
mm.
fantastic. We've got Andrea Riseborough as Audrey Withers. She was the editor of British Vogue during the Second World War. She was in Birdman, Brighton Rock, and To Leslie. A very Riseborough role. She's just really great in whatever she's in, to be fair. Bounces off of Winslet really, really well.
She does.
Um,
They have good
mm,
chemistry, don't they?
Everyone's got great chemistry in this. It's very well cast. Josh O'Connor plays Anthony Penrose, obviously Lee Miller's son. He worked on the Riot Club, Challengers, and The Crown. Then we have Samuel Barnett playing Cecil Beaton, obviously a famous photographer for British Vogue and a war photographer, and later a set designer. Samuel Barnett's been on lots of stage and screen work. He was in, I think, nearly every version of the History Boys that there ever has been, as Penrose. The Lady in the Van, Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Anyone who's done GCSE English will definitely have seen the History Boys. Um, and yeah, that is about it. It is a very lean cast. There's some other people in there, but in terms of actual screen time, there isn't many more. There's a lot of people
Mm.
that come and go, but I just thought do the main players here.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I think we might as well get into the alley tally.
This is 5 to Alpha, contact now, the grid. 852-676, approximately 4 tanks and 10 APCs moving directly towards the wood. I'm observing, over.
Hello Sunray. Fighting on Film has partnered up with warfaremedia.net to give our listeners exclusive discounts on a range of high-resolution Cold War adverts, propaganda and recruitment posters. From blowpipes to nuclear threats to weapon schematics, Warfare Media has you covered. Visit warfaremedia.net today and use the code FOF20 at checkout for 20% off high-quality Cold War posters. I repeat, FOF20 at checkout. Over.
Roger, out to you and take action now. Send us SITREP as soon as possible. Over.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
Mr. Moss?
Go on, Rob. Go on.
Are you sure?
I'm not gonna prevent you. You're jumping at the bit to talk about
I'm not.
the
Well,
correspondent kit. Come on.
okay. So I don't know if people know
It's so
me
good.
or have met me. I just think I should preface this. So I have a big love affair and love for war correspondents and their work because obviously it's how the war was reported. It's how the war was captured, the AFPU, the war correspondents, the war photographers. It's how the war was documented. And everything we do as historians, in some way, you're either looking at a photo of war correspondent as taken, or you're mostly, not all the time, but you do read war correspondents' dispatches.
Yeah.
So they're so important to how we view the war and how it was viewed back then. It's such an important thing. So I have lots of books on war correspondence, and I'm sitting next to a fabulous book called Inks and Images by Keith Raymond Hartwell, which is the uniforms, insignia, and ephemera of war correspondents and war photographers in the Second World War. It's a tome. I love it. So I was uber excited for this one. So we have Lee Miller in her HBT overalls, 1943 cut, I think. Can't remember. But they're very workmanlike uniform. And war correspondents would pretty much wear what they want. There was no real genuine sort of thing they had to wear. It was pretty much what you wanted, but there was obviously service dress that you would go out in, and then once you got to the front, you would change. And you see a lot of war correspondents who would wear a cravat, or some would get a tanker's jacket or an M41. Ernie Pyle favoured a Mackinaw coat and a Jeep hat. Miller wore a sort of an array of things, but more often than not, the pictures that we see of Miller in Malmo, in Germany later in the war, she's either wearing this big sort of parka winter type coat, and her sort of, I think it's maybe one of her favourite things to wear underneath was like this sheepskin waistcoat. And I really loved, really loved the little touch later on where she's had it hemmed and sort of worked on in the later 70s sections. That was a lovely touch. She's either wearing the same thing or something to that effect. I really liked it. It's a nice little through line there through uniform and costuming. Very well done this week. And the thing that I love the most, and I'm going to bore everyone to death now with it, is that she's got on the subtle green square and round war correspondent flashes.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I'm the expert in it, but I know the repros of them very well. So some repros make them on black felt or black material, and they put the yellow, but that's not wrong. But the genuine issue ones were a subtle green, so that's really nice touch for me. But there is evidence of war correspondents making their own, having their own made up in the theatre. So there's all different kinds of. I think I've talked about this before on the show many times. But there's sequences where the light hits them, and I saw there was subtle green, and Matt wasn't with me, but I didn't know anyone there. But I would have gone, it's the subtle green ones, the mid-war 43 subtle green ones.
I was watching 2 hours later in another city, and I thought, Rob spotted that. I could feel it.
Yeah. Really nice to see. And there was also, very blink and you'll miss it, but there was a couple of British war correspondents wearing the British C badge, embroidered badge on
in the hotel in Paris.
Yeah, a couple of them. And I think I saw a French guy wearing, a Free French war correspondent wearing one too, which was really lovely to see. Just really, really great costuming this week. And I really like the touch of, they're not Lucky Strikes, they were Silver Line or Silver Duty cigarettes. Really nice. A nice distinction there, because Lee Miller, poor Kate Winslet's lungs, but she smokes like a trooper in this.
And so she wasn't method.
No, well, maybe she does smoke. Who knows?
I have no idea.
But no, really, really good. And there's something in movies, and maybe it's because I'm an ex-smoker, but when someone takes a drag and you hear that crinkly, crunchy sound of the ash of the cigarette being dragged on, I really love that sound in movies. There's something about it.
I wonder what the Foley artists used to make that sound.
Yeah, I wonder. Maybe like crinkle him with foil or
We
something very
need to get a
gently.
Foley artist on.
We
That's for
really
sure.
blooming do.
Mm.
And I've got a couple more things for Ali Tally, but I'll let you go and
Sure.
see if you know if we match.
I'll lead off with the cameras.
Yeah.
Lee throughout's using a Rolliflex, TLR, TRL, I should say, twin lens reflex. So you're looking down. So
Mhm.
for a lot of people, that have grown up with point and shoots or iPhones,
Mm.
those kind of cameras are a little bit, esoteric. They're not something that you have an everyday connection to.
No.
You might not see that and think that's a camera.
Yeah.
And that just occurred to me while I was watching the film. I was like, this is probably the most
Type of Rolliflex has been on screen for a
it's been
long
on screen,
while.
and this is the most interaction people will have probably had with that kind of camera in a fair while. But I love the sequences where they kind of peer over Lee's shoulder down into the viewfinder, and you can see that viewfinder in the little box, and I love how she kind of like shifts the box to get the angle, and the camera captures that a couple of times, and those moments are really special because it shows the composition of the photograph being made in frame, because there's no editing. I mean,
no.
Interestingly, I did like the fact that they showed Lee looking at contact sheets, like with a little red marker, like crossing out what she doesn't want,
Really
and drawing
nice.
around to crop for the photo editor. That was cool.
And I liked it when they got their white balance little devices out. That's
the
neat.
light meters out. Yeah. The little chunky light meters.
Yeah. Just subtly, not overplaying it, but subtly showing, the art of picture taking back then. It's not all built in an SLR like we have it now. Just showing you very subtly, not overdoing it. I really enjoyed that.
Well, they did wait almost. Must have been just over half the way into the film before they showed Miller putting film into the camera for the first time, like reloading the camera. And
maybe
I saw the film.
Maybe that because this movie didn't have a lot of firearms in it. Maybe that's the film version of not reloading. Yeah, maybe
it totally is
the camera version.
I saw the film with my partner Lauren, and she's a photography tutor lecturer, and
did it pass muster? That's all I'm going to ask.
It did. She enjoyed the film.
For those who don't know, Lauren is also our in-house artist. So if you bought a FOF t-shirt, it's Lauren's artwork.
And she was saying, didn't see her loading that camera very often. She took a lot of photographs. And I was like, yeah, I know about that. That's a common thing.
I didn't clock it until you've mentioned it. I didn't clock it.
It's the firearm camera reloading trope.
30-foot magazines in other movies, 30-foot reels in this one.
Exactly. So on a Rolliflex, you probably get 12 exposures per roll, and you never see a shoot like 30 in one shot. It's always multiple shots, and you can go, oh well, she probably just put another roll of film in, when the camera shot broke to another shot. So that's how I get past the whole reloading thing for guns and cameras.
It's fine. It's suspend your belief, Matt. It's not a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think I didn't quite clock it, but I think Sandberg is using a Contax 35mm. And yeah, they're the two cameras I think I spotted. There's just, I think we'll talk about this later on, but there's just something about the way that the film captures that photographic process that is short of showing a dark room in the development process of film. They do capture film photography quite well. Yeah, they do.
I'll jump off there. It's more sort of photography chat, but that is Ali this week. That's the Ali. The Ali tally isn't always going to be a mixed bag. It's this. I know we just talked about it earlier, but it's the setting up of the photographs. Like everything that wasn't staged and was encountered naturally by Lee. If you've seen Lee's works, that's really something that I really felt would have been hard to capture on screen, but this movie does it really well. I've got it down here, and I've written it in a way I don't even know if it makes sense, but Matt, you might know what I mean.
Mm.
It's maybe one of the more true, quote unquote, depictions of a battleground that we've seen, because Winslet's encountering the people in the images she will take, i.e., Miller will take, in real time in a way in those sequences. So every single shot you see Miller take is a genuine photo Miller took. And I love that. I that's so special.
It is.
Because we've never had that before, really. We were talking about the Don McCullum movie earlier, and it's like, I hope that's how they do McCullum's biopic if we get it.
Yeah, no, we've said that months ago when we
there's
were
a
talking
natural there's a naturalness to this that it's just I don't feel like it's hard
It
to
didn't feel
describe it until you've
shoehorned in.
seen it.
That's
No, that's what I mean.
That's
It
the,
felt
the
natural.
beauty of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they flow within the narrative and the scene.
Mm.
So take the Sam Allo sequence where she's running across the square and she takes cover behind some sandbags and she turns and there's the boot and the belt of ammo on the floor and the blood, and she's there and she grabs she clicks the shutter just as that mortar round like throws her back, and it's not contrived. It flows beautifully.
It's natural. It's a photographer. You're seeing a photographer work. There's something interesting. I'll snap a photo of it. I'll move on to the next one. But there's some great little scenes in these sequences where there's a shot of some artillery spotters at St. Malmo that she took just behind them, and she comes into the room, and obviously they're spotting, and there's they're going to drop the napalm over the causeway, and she just goes, "Don't mind me." Like it's some great little Millerisms, I'm going to call them, that in this that's really good. Some really great like naturalistic dialogue, and it doesn't come off as forced. It doesn't come off as sort of contrived. It's quite natural, and also as well, the time taken that we said to show the Rolliflexes, but then it's this whole showing that some photos were actually staged that I really enjoyed as well.
Very much
you've got the fire mask shot that she took.
Yeah.
And you see that being staged. The famous photo of the ATS girls in their fur coats. And that's where she meets Sherman, and he holds up a mirror to get the light off of the searchlights. And whoever sourced those fur coats for that 40-50 second shot, you are a diamond. The costume department in this deserve an award, because who's sourcing those fur coats? Just exquisite. I loved it. Absolutely adored it. Beautiful. Really lovely. Just the care taken. That's what I think this week for my Ali Tally. It's the care shown to this, to Miller's experience. It's the care that they've given her. I really enjoyed that. And obviously the sequence of them setting up the Adolf bathroom shot.
Yeah, breaking the frame, rubbing the mud into the mats.
Yeah,
that scene was really, really interesting. I enjoyed the way that they kind of formulated that and put that together. I think we'll talk about that later on as well.
Okay. Have you got it for favorite scene then?
It's not my favorite scene, but it's one of my favorite scenes.
Okay. I had it for my Ali quote of the week, which once you've seen the movie, you'll understand the context. But so Miller's getting in the bath, they're getting ready to set the photo. Sandberg's coming in, and he's getting the Rolliflex on ready. And Miller goes to she takes her clothes off, she gets in the bath, obviously, pours the water, and then Winslet, as Miller says to Sherman before he takes a shot, she said, and I wrote it down verbatim, she says, "Make sure you can't see my tits or we'll never get it past the censor." And that got a big laugh in the theatre. It was a great little line. And sort of Andy just gives her like a look as if to go, of course.
Felt very authentic, didn't it?
Very, yeah. They bounce off each other really well. Good chemistry. But then
it contrasts with Lee's, exuberant, almost exhibitionist personality, doesn't it?
Yeah. She's serious when she needs to be, but then she's sort of not ambivalent, but she's sort of wisecracky when she needs to be, just to break the tension. Sort of an unconventional woman, for her time. And it shows, and I love it. But I also would have loved to see them then take the photo of David Sherman in the bath because
I
there is
thought
a
they were
photo
going
of
to.
him.
Yeah, I thought they
It's
were
a
going
shame
to
we
do
didn't
that.
see it. It's a lesser known image, but it's still
It is.
important. Mm.
Well, everyone associates that image with Lee, and obviously Lee composed it, but he pushed the shutter, didn't he?
Sherman
So,
took that photo.
yeah.
Yeah, it's ironic that the most famous image of Lee Miller, perhaps, was taken by Sherman, and he's lesser known, but no, just as much as important as well. His work for Life magazine is fantastic. If anyone's ever seen it, please look it up. Anyway, but no, and also a quick mention to the Air Transport Auxiliary because I think it's their
Ooh.
first on-screen depiction.
Yeah.
Really nice.
ATA girls, lovely. And
Yeah.
the uniform was spot on.
And obviously because I can't go back and screen grab it, I didn't know what transport planes they had there, but that was nice to see. I didn't clock them what they were, but that was nice to see them.
It was.
Really
Was
nice.
was the pilot she spoke to? Oh God, I can't remember the name of the actress now. But she looked familiar.
She did to me as well. I've seen her in something. Definitely have.
It was a lovely little scene actually.
Really nice.
There was a nice touch where Lee, basically, if you're listening to this before watching the film, Lee enters the kind of living quarters, the barracks of the ATA girls, and gets that great photograph of the underwear drying in the window, and she spots a copy of Vogue on the bed, and she starts flicking through it, and she sees her own work.
Yeah,
and I love that. That was a really nice way of showing the magazine out in the real world, but also getting a little bit of Lee's photography in that we haven't yet seen. And that was cool. There was something about
it's like
that
when
that
you find one of
just
your pieces in a magazine when you're in Smith's. Yeah, it's just a nice little moment. You're like, oh my God, it's my work. It's like a really nice thing. Yeah, no, just some great little moments in there. Really, really are.
Well, let's talk about some more of those in favorite scenes.
Hello, I'm Al Murray, and you're listening to Fighting on Film, the world's #1 war film podcast.
Favorite scene this week is the wrong phrase. I'm going to go for affecting scene, which is more apt. So later in the movie, there's the discovery by them, not just them, but by Lee and Sherman, of the Buchenwald and the Dachau death camps and the cattle trains at Dachau. And that moment and those sequences are expertly done. They have a weight to them. They have a respect to them, I think. Just show the sheer pointlessness and the waste of human life that was inflicted in those camps, and how it affected the people that found them. And it recreates some of Miller's photos she took during that sequence. And there's one moment where Lee enters a room. I think it's at Dachau. It might be at Buchenwald. I can.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for me actually to go and look through the photos for this bit to find out, because I find them incredibly hard to look at.
Well, they are incredibly hard to look at.
But Lee's work of that, it just has I want to say like a point blankness to them. There's something about Miller's work where it feels natural, and you know exactly what Miller is trying to tell you through her work. Very rare for a war photographer
Very direct,
of that time.
There's a lot of depth to her work.
How to shoot people, and I'm horrible to say it, but whether they be alive or dead, she has an amazing way of showing you exactly what they mean. Her work for me is almost unparalleled. I mean, I know this is a love letter to Lee for me, really. I love Lee's work. I always have. But those sequences are incredible. So there's a room that she goes into, and it's filled almost to the top with bodies, and it's plays with a tenderness and a soberness. We're shown Lee and Sandberg's reaction. Lee has a bit of resolve. She tells Sherman to hold up the flash. The flash goes off. Lee takes her photo and she leaves. And then we have a little shot of light going past and the room being illuminated for a split second, and you see the bodies and they move on. And I thought that's the scene that shows the brutalness and the horrificness of that period of human history just so well, almost on a par with Zone of Interest a few months ago. It hit me in the same way, and I really thought that was a triumph. Those
Two very
sections.
different approaches, but two very effective approaches.
Yeah,
I agree. That those scenes are in my list here, and affecting is a good way of describing that, because it's very, deftly handled. It's well handled. The direction and the cinematography of those shots, that split second of light that you mentioned from the flash illuminating the bodies, the
it's
pile.
all you need as
Yeah.
well.
It
They're
doesn't
not
linger. The camera
overplaying
doesn't
it.
linger. It doesn't need to linger. We know they're in a place of,
There's a respect there
mm.
in those sequences.
And there's other scenes, when they're on the trail of following this human toll. They encounter a train. They can't, they're affected by the smell. They're trying to cover their noses with scarves, and that scene affected me. I thought that was very striking.
The juxtapose of the Americans sort of looking after this train.
The juxtaposition of the family just sat and the kids playing
That's
nearby,
what I was getting
and
at. Yeah.
Such youth and life, and then a train, and there's a second where Sandberg looks to the side and sees just how long that train is, carriage after carriage after carriage after carriage, and they're all full. They're all carriages full of people that have been deported and sent to the camps and never got to the camps. Just killed, left to die in those wagons. And
Sandberg says so much in this movie without saying a lot.
He does,
because he doesn't have many lines.
He doesn't, and I went out. I left this feeling that his character and his performance was great. I thought he nailed the tone, and he got the comedic elements where, reacting to Lee's, boisterousness, or captured the friendship. That's what I got.
They did.
And
but
Sandberg
Andy brings
actually has
weight.
a look of him as well.
He does, really does. Yeah. No, I was very excited to see Sandberg in this, because I had wanted him to do a more serious role, because you've seen it in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You've seen him do weighty work. In that,
I rate him. I think he
I've always loved him.
He has the bones of being a very good actor, dramatic actor. We know he's a good comedic actor. But what I was going to say was, I felt like we could have had just a scene or two more establishing his character,
Agreed.
growing it. He has this great line where they're in Hitler's flat in Munich, and he breaks, and he says, "They were my people." And that scene's very affecting. And we've just had that recreation of the having a bath in Hitler's bathroom, and there's a bit of levity to that, and there's a tension. There's almost a nervous tension of when they're staging that, and I love that scene. That is probably one of my favorite scenes in the film. But
it
would have been great to have shown him hopping in the bath, having that shot taken, and then perhaps having that moment of realization of like, oh, I'm in Hitler's bath, and then he gets out. They're in the lobby, and they, and then he has that moment of, they were my people.
This movie does what Civil War did really well, where it shows someone in a situation where they're not. It's not they're not meant to be there, but they're not part of it. You know what I mean? So like them going through Hitler's house, and there's all these GIs smoking, drinking, reading the paper, having a relax, and they're walking through it. And obviously they're us, the viewer, but they're walking through it with this kind of, what is going on here?
It's a surreal moment, isn't it? They come out of this grey street in Munich, and they go up into the flat. They bribe their way in with a couple of packs of silver line.
I like how Lee Miller bribes him with the one thing that a GI would have had a shit ton of.
I said exactly that. Every ration pack comes with a pack of fags.
I felt she was going to be like, I thought she was going to give him a smooch or something, but maybe she must have done that in real life. She must have bribed him with smokes. I've never read how she got in.
No, I haven't read that.
No, but they had clearance. The problem is with me, the movie sometimes.
Well, the thing is that the interesting moment is that the sentry says it's officers only. Like, well, war correspondents were considered officers. They were technically considered officer rank, weren't they? So they could have just walked in anyway.
To stop them not being able to go places. You know, the censor was another issue, but they were allowed access. And Miller had written down the address.
Oh,
I think
she had it for
months
years,
before.
didn't she? There's that famous quote where I had it in my pocketbook for years.
A great little scene, but I wish, I'm with you there. I wish they'd stayed in there a little bit longer because the story goes that after they had the bath, they slept there. They slept in Hitler's bed. So I would have liked to have them having that come down of what they've gone through, having that talk, having a bit more reflection with each other because they've been through so much. And that's one of my little criticisms. And I do have a couple this week when we'll get onto them in a minute, but I just wanted a little bit more of them because I was enjoying it. And that's not really a criticism. I just wanted more of it because it was good. And yeah, and also as well for favourite scenes as well. I really like the way Malmo was done. I think that was really well done.
It was very dynamic.
Very good.
Do
Sound
you
design in
remember
that
that they
section was-
paused production on that? It was reported at the time. The first day of the shoot of production, in fact, Winslet slipped and hit her back in that scene.
Did she like break
She
a
went to
vertebrae
hospital.
or something?
Something.
Yeah.
But she opted to carry on filming after a couple of days.
You
But
wouldn't know
I
it.
love how dynamic that is.
Very good.
There's a scene where she encounters an officer, and he's like, "You again?" It's almost comic, but it's these small little very human interactions. I also
really good.
liked the scenes where she's photographing the medical unit. I thought they were very effective because that's her first exposure to the realities of war
Brutality
and
of
combat.
war.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that they take a guy's leg off in front of her, and she's just like, wow, because she kind of comes over with the torch because Jenny goes out.
Yeah.
Just very nicely composed scenes.
Yeah.
And I thought in general, I thought the mise en scène of the film was really rather good.
There we go. You got one in. You did it. Go. It took a
But
while,
I
but
do.
we got there. But no, this movie has to be all mise en scène. It has to be.
You've got to
it has
nail
to
it.
be correct because you're recreating real moments. You know, you're not. This is
It's
a
there
more
on
of
film.
a pseudo documentary style biopic in a way. Because you're recreating images that have to be taken because they are going to be
We're
taken.
seeing Lee Miller, Lee Miller's war through Lee Miller's eyes. You have to nail it.
Final thoughts? Final thoughts. Matt, I went first on Ali Tally and film and favourite scenes, so why don't you take us away this time?
Well, we've been anticipating this one for quite a while now, and we were hoping that it was going to be A, live up to the legacy of Lee Miller, and B, be a good war movie. And I think it nails it on both counts.
Really?
Yeah. Well, exactly. And I think it
After
nails
Ungentlemanly Warfare, anything would have wowed me. If I'm
Well,
honest.
this is true. So for me, I really enjoyed Winslet's performance. I thought the post-war scenes were really interesting and very powerful, and they really captured the PTSD that Miller would have experienced and did experience. The reality of not all of her photographs were published, and some of the ones that she was most passionate about and felt should see the light of day, the Holocaust and the human toll of that, and the inhumanity of the Nazis.
But they were printed in American.
They were
British
well,
folk.
but it was 3 months later, and they were almost kind of overshadowed by the end of the war in the
Japan. Yeah.
But I agree. I like that they included that, and I like that they showed Riseborough's character trying to explain that to her, and the palpable kind of just.
She's having a breakdown in those sequences.
Is. Well, she's having a breakdown, and Riseborough's character is feeling so guilty for not being able to get those photographs into the magazine that she edits.
Those two. Really great.
There's a very powerful telling scene where Lee explains the context of why she feels, that some of the photographs, including those of a little girl that had been in a camp that she saw, should be published. And I thought that scene was very, very strong. I think if she doesn't get an award nod,
Certainly a BAFTA nod, I
I
would
would be
think.
very surprised. I think it's probably one of their best performances I've ever seen her give.
I
And
love Winslet anyway. I've not seen
well,
Winslet do a bad
she's
picture.
always money. She is good, and whether it's a rom-com or Titanic or something with this passion behind it that she clearly has, I think it carries. I would just reiterate that I would have liked to have seen more of Sherman's character and a bit more of Sandberg.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't have hurt.
The film, but as Lauren pointed out, the film is about Lee Miller, and
About Miller, but
it would be lovely to have a film about Sherman. I would love that. I think that would be phenomenal if we had more war correspondent movies, because they give that unique perspective.
We need to do a Private War with Rosamund Pike. We need to do that one.
Yes, that would be good. It just left me wanting to see more war correspondent movies, but there's so many unique experiences. Sherman's being one of them, as Sean Flynn. The McCullen film. We want the McCullen film.
Please.
But no, I really enjoy this, and I came away feeling like there was something missing, and I've been trying to put my finger onto what it was. And as a sum of its parts, it's a great film. It's a very good film. It captures that essence that we've talked about, throughout the show.
For sure.
Definitely handles the horrors of the Holocaust, but also Lee's background and that human toll of war that you can see as they're on that trip through Northwest Europe. You can see the toll that's being taken by everything that they're taking photographs of, reporting on, interacting with. And, the clothes get grubbier. There's some amphetamines handed around. There's a lot of drinking, a lot of smoking to cope with those, that battle stress. And
because we have to remember as well, these people are civilians. They're not military trained.
No, this is their first experience of this. And I think the film does a very good job of capturing that nuance. I find myself comparing it to Civil War, because obviously that's the other war movie.
And of course, Lee in Civil War is named after Lee Miller, so there's a nice connection there.
It is. There's a very different approach in some aspects of that, where they sometimes, when there's a photograph taken, a still comes up on screen, and that I liked that, but I feel that Lee carried it off a little better.
It treated the pictures like pictures. It didn't force it on you. That I think that's
like
where
I
it
said earlier, the ability to see over Lee's shoulder into her viewfinder as she composes a shot. That's a very special thing, I think.
I'm with you on a lot of that. I've got it here. It's an almost conventional biopic, however, with some narrative cliches or some filmmaking cliches that I didn't enjoy. So the one thing that irks me with the movie, and I don't know whether I didn't like it because it was cliche, or I don't know if I didn't like it because it could have been used to show me more of Miller in the field, was the interview section with her son and her in 1977, the year that she passed away. It worked for me until it didn't. When I realised where they were going with it, and I won't spoil.
Well, it's not set up as their son, is it? It's kind of like it's almost established as a young reporter coming to interview an old reporter.
Yeah, and then when I clicked, it was the son interviewing the mother. I was a little bit like, do we need this? Is there a better way of showing Penrose finding her mother's work after she passes away? I think there might be a better way of doing that, but that's just me, because I wanted more of Miller. I wanted more of her doing her work. I felt like it could have been, show me the reaction to the Believe It Vogue article coming out, because that very important. Show me that. Don't tell me that at the end. Tell me tell me Sherman worked for Life magazine. It wouldn't have hurt them.
It's mumbled when he's introduced. It kind of rolls into
but
his
I'm
introduction,
like, it wouldn't have
and
killed
it's
you.
not. Yeah,
because by golly, do they drop some horrible, clunky expositional dialogue on you when you need it? By golly, they do. But I get it. I get that. Well, they have to. But then again, it's the care that and the love that for Lee that has been put on screen, and this near perfect mise en scène, and the people that she met are very well written. Lee feels real. And there was a point around the 40-minute mark where I lost Winslet in the role. I had to stop and think, no, that's an actress there. That's Kate Winslet. It's something about the hair, something about the rough clothing, the grubbiness of it all that it gets. You just lose her a little bit in it, and that's very well done, and I liked it. Then again, but then coming back to my niggles, is the time skips are very big. So you go from 1940 to 41 without them telling you that the famous shot of the fire masks was taken in 41.
There's a little bit of a montage where she's
A little
walking
bit
in the
of a
park with
montagey?
Riseborough,
Little bit.
that kind of just tells the passage of time. But
Yeah, and then we're
there's a
in Malmo.
voiceover as well.
Yeah. And then we're in Malmo with narration. And I'm like, you're skipping 3 years there.
Well, they have
really
the 43 photograph with the Searchlight Girls and the
They
88
do,
bit
but they don't tell you
before that.
this. And I'm fine with them not telling. But unless you know, I think the time skips are just a bit vast. You know?
No, I know
And
what
I
you
don't
mean,
mind
but
assuming
at the
knowledge.
same
I don't
time,
mind that. But it just I want to see more of
yeah.
it. Because I was enjoying it.
Well, there's a couple of really great shots of London in the Blitz. There's that one down the deserted street,
the tube
because
station.
yeah. Well, there isn't the tube station shot, is there? That's
Oh no, so I'm thinking
so
of the shot that isn't in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Show me a
That
little
would
bit
have
more
been a
of that.
great shot to include, but
Yeah.
obviously that might have been a fairly expensive pickup shot to do.
It could have been, exactly, for what might have been a 2-minute sequence, not even that. No, there's a lovely little shot of her in an Anderson shelter, just furiously smoking, playing cards. Quite like that. That was a niggle, the 77 bit. However, it was nice to see Winslet portraying an older, more bitter, reflectively. I like that.
On the gin, like it.
Yeah, on the chin. Yeah, and still smoke, and with a 70s Bic lighter. Loved seeing that. I would say it's very good. It's not perfect. It's the sum of its parts. What you said, I agree with. It is lacking a little something. It's lacking just a little.
I haven't been able to put my finger on what is lacking
a
yet.
Little uppity poo.
I need to
for all the Nine Men fans out there.
A little something. I need to watch it again, and then I might be able to narrow that down. But I came away thinking I enjoyed that, but there was something within that I would have.
A couple of reviewers that I talked to afterwards, in the foyer, felt the same, which was interesting. Yeah, just that little something. Just I can't put my pin. I can't pin it, but it's there, and I don't know. But I did not enjoy the movie. I did enjoy it. I thought it was very good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But and also as well, if you're new to Miller's work and you know nothing about her, then this is a fantastic jumping off point to learn more about her, learn more about war correspondents' work, and look them up. And I hope it is the resurgence again of Miller's work.
They did a good job of establishing who she was.
I really do.
And that is a very difficult thing to do. Model, muse, incredible photographer in her own right, even before the war photography.
Of course.
Developing the solarization techniques with Man Ray, and the establishment
We're really showing
of
our
her character.
artsy side this week. I've just realised. Yeah. I may have gone to a comprehensive, dear boy, but I'm boy of the arts,
It's not all just Simpsons quotes and Alan Parsons.
No, it's not. We are quite learned men. We're just normal men. If anyone knows that.
Normal men.
Yeah, we haven't had many tangents this week. I think we're doing good. Doing good on Tangent Watch.
Certain people will be pleased, I'm sure. I hope. And but getting back to my point, I think that the film does a pretty good job of establishing her, not only her kind of background, but also her personality in that first act. And it does lay the groundwork for obviously that development through the war and the impact it had on her. But at the same time, as you've said, I would have liked just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more of her
It's like a
experience
little.
before she got to Europe. I think that would
Yeah,
have
I agree.
kind of just grown
Mm.
our appreciation for the development of her as a war photographer.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I was I was a little bit like a sort of like a depressed addict at the end. So I was like, I just give me another little hit.
Just more.
Give me a little something. Give me, don't leave me hanging. But no, a very competent film, very enjoyable film. Good pacing. Never felt like it sagged at all, even with the interview sections that I didn't enjoy. I never felt like they dragged too long.
I didn't mind the interview sections, and I was genuinely affected when he turned to her and she disappeared. You know, because he never had that conversation with her.
Well, it got me when she gave him all the stuff about like him growing up.
This is your
Just
first
lost my
book.
dad, so that was like, oh, I don't need this, you know. But that it did its job, you know. If it meant to make the room a little bit misty, then it did its job. I appreciate that. You could tell that she cared. You know, she might have been a bit of a firebrand. She might have been a bit of a battle axe, but she cared. You know, whether that be for her work or her family, and that is a lovely thing.
And well, I think it captures the personality, and
it does.
That is a very hard thing to do. I've seen a lot of films fail to do that.
Yeah, so that was Lee 2024. A big thank you to Sky Cinema for the invite, and a big thank you to the Everyman Theatre for getting Matt in. You know, very nice of them to be showing it on the same day at exactly nearly the same time.
Thank God they do members
timing.
previews. Yeah.
Yes,
and if Everyman Cinemas would like to sponsor the podcast, feel free.
Oh, we'd love that. We'd love that.
Same for Sky.
Yeah, please do. God, please do. God, I might get Sky Sports for free. Yeah, just give me Sky Sports for 2 years. You can put any ads you want on the show anyway. So no, if you want to see some of the original, if you want to see some of the uniforms that are used in the film, and you're in London, and you can go to Hatchard's bookstore, and they have a lovely Lee window display at the moment that's really nice, and they have some signed copies of The Life of Lee Miller for sale. That was Lee. It's out on Friday if you're listening on the day of release. Go and see it. You know, I could not recommend it to you because I really blooming enjoyed it.
Likewise, I definitely would suggest going to see it, and I believe there's going to be another retrospective of her work coming up soon in one of the big London museums. I forget which one it is now. Could be the V&A.
Could be the V&A.
I know it's been a few years since there's been one. It was definitely pre-COVID, so I'm definitely going to go and try and catch that.
We'll have a 4 out of 10. Much like the beer, it's a Miller High Life. Thanks for listening this week. We've been Fighting on Film. Do join us again next time for another War Movie review. Drop us a like, a review on whatever you're listening on. We love it when you do, and it helps the pod out so much. You can become a Patreon member if you are that way inclined to keep your boys on the mics going, and we will catch you next week for another War Movie review. Bye, folks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.